How changes in the design of Strawberry Shortcake reflect trends within children's media. Presentation by Ruby Driscoll, BA Illustration, tutor Nicola Ashmore, pre-recorded presentation. The stories we're told and the characters we see as children are some of the earliest media we're exposed to, and very often form memories that stay with us into adulthood. With the increasingly visible debate as to what content is appropriate for children, I wanted to investigate how the visual media children are presented with has changed both in form and function over the last century. I aim to examine how changes in cultural attitudes within the West towards children have impacted the output of children's media. I will focus on the character of Strawberry Shortcake during this investigation, using her timeline as an exemplary case study for the changes characters of her archetype have experienced. I felt that she would be a suitable focus due to not only being a character I had grown up with, but also one with an extensive history and multiple examinable eras, contingent on the media environment she was situated within at various times. Firstly, I will introduce the work of 20th century children's illustrator Henry C. Pitts as an early grounding point in the discussion of children's media. Published in 1963, Pitts' book, Illustrating Children's Books, is divided into three sections: history, technique and production, and professional practice. Pitts' history details as far back as the 16th century, but most relevant to this investigation is his commentary on the then contemporary history of children's illustration. He speaks about how children's media, children's illustration in particular, as an industry, was a phenomenon of the 20th century. Pitts highlights the work of Frederick Remington as a key example of American influence over the printed image, but describes how Remington would never have considered himself a children's illustrator, yet tens of thousands of American boys have pored over his drawings with heart-thumping excitement. Here, Pitts demonstrates his view of the categorization of artists into the camp of children's illustrators to be a more recent phenomenon, creating a distinction wherein previously, work may have been created that was enjoyed by children, without them necessarily existing as an intended audience. Further to this point, Pitts describes how, quote, children's book rooms in libraries and children's book departments in bookstores are now taken for granted, but they were new things up until the 1920s, unquote, demonstrating the rapid growth and normalization of children as a primary audience of printed media in particular in the mid-20th century. With the revolution of mass production, there was a growing sense of loss of care for the craft, with, quote, what was once a haphazard delight becoming a highly organized operation, at times threatening to lose sight of its primary purpose, unquote. In this way, Pitts served as an early voice in the criticism of the mass media landscape, suggesting that the primary purpose of entertaining and educating children may be being lost due to the ever-expanding scale of production and distribution. It is within this saturated children's media environment that we find the origins of the character who would come to be known as Strawberry Shortcake. Originally drawn as Girl with a Daisy by illustrator Barbie Sargent, the character began as an image on a run of promotional greetings cards, specifically the American Greetings Laurel Valentine card, 1973. Following this, the character is appropriated in the late 1970s by Rex Connors and Muriel Farian, art director and staff artist respectively at American Greetings. They redraw the character to emphasize the strawberry aspect of her design, originally only present in her bonnet, based on market research undertaken by Jack Hanofsky relating to consumer popularity of the strawberry motif. The pair design a doll, which is then taken to Bernie Looms, the president of General Mills Toy Division, who grants funding for the merchandising of the character. From this point on, Strawberry is pushed extensively. Jack Hanofsky was quoted by People magazine in 1980 as saying, "Our slogan is, Strawberry Shortcake lets a little girl stay a little girl. Good ideas don't die. They are killed by mismanagement," unquote. This demonstrates the intent to appeal to children as primary consumers. This element of marketing is further heightened when, in 1984 under Ronald Reagan, laws change allowing for characters, including Strawberry Shortcake, to appear both in marketing and TV content.
Hello, Strawberry. Oh, Plum Puddin', welcome back to Strawberry Land. You too, Elderberry Owl. I told you I'd be here for the camping trip. I wouldn't miss it for anything.
This change resulted in a boom of popularity for the character, as Strawberry and her friends were well suited to a market where television shows were essentially created to maximize product sales to children. Another character in Strawberryland meant another doll for a child to ask for, so it was seen as a wise investment to put money behind the brand, with evidence suggesting lasting popularity of this iteration of the character. However, this boom was short-lived. Towards the end of the 1980s, the brand enters a dormant period, due in my opinion to a 1987 change in advertising law which limited the advertising to children through television, in addition to the initial target demographic outgrowing the brand. This idea is supported by the comments made by Michael Brown, VP of Licensing at American Greetings, in regards to the limited success of the 1991 attempt at revival. Quote, "It was too soon to bring it back. The original audience didn't have enough distance from it. They were just entering their teens and weren't interested in properties from their childhood." Unquote. These comments were made within the context of an article in Kidscreen promoting the 2002 relaunch of the brand, and the beginnings of an appeal to brand recognition or nostalgia within the marketing of the character. Author Simon Ashdown speculated in regards to Brown's comments, quote, 10 years later, many of those girls are now mums who are prone to pangs of nostalgia when toy shopping. This feeling is what DIC and American Greetings are banking on, unquote. In 2004, children's author Martin Salisbury commented that, quote, "It seems unlikely that, in the years to come, the early 21st century will be remembered as having been dominated by a particular style," unquote. Yet he still describes the then contemporary market as being within a golden age. These words ring prophetic when juxtaposed with a strong lurch towards nostalgia as a key factor in marketing that many children's media brands would undergo in the years that followed. By the late 2000s, consumers have begun complaining online about the direction of change in the design of the character. Comments ranged from the character becoming, quote, simplified, blandified, testing the upper limits of just how bright and eye-scorching they can make them, unquote, to her being, quote, tarted up a bit, unquote, to appeal to a market of children who were growing up more quickly and less interested in childish things. Seemingly in response to this growing sentiment, the brand seemed to turn away from having a unique style for the era and instead began appealing to a sense of familiarity or nostalgia within the marketing strategy. In 2008, Alfred R. Kahn, chairman of 4Kids Entertainment, franchise manager of Strawberry Shortcake, was quoted in a New York Times article discussing the reimagining of classic characters in the 21st century. He says, quote, "It's a terrible world, and modern parents are trying to cocoon their kids as much as possible. What better way to protect them than wrapping them in nostalgic brands," unquote. This demonstrates the intent behind the increased appeal to nostalgia within the marketing and design of the Strawberry Shortcake character. As the article author Brooks Barnes explains, quote, "If the classic characters look less stodgy, then companies hope they will appeal not only to the parents who remember them fondly, but also to children who might automatically be suspicious of toys their parents played with. For parents, nostalgia is considered a bigger sales hook than ever because of the increasingly violent and hypersexualized media landscape," unquote. This notion begins bearing fruit in 2019 with the release of a line of dolls celebrating the 40th anniversary of the character. The doll, approximately 6 inches tall, stands in a box that displays the phrase, "the original 1980s design," prominently, as well as including artwork in the style of the 1980s run, and describing how the doll is, quote, "from childhood's past and present," and "for collectors and new fans alike," unquote. There is demonstrably a greater emphasis on appealing to the sense of nostalgia among parents and older consumers. This can furthermore be seen within the visual language of the social media accounts associated with Strawberry Shortcake. The Instagram page primarily focuses on posting nostalgia-heavy content such as clips from old episodes, and when original content is created, such as the collaboration with Sanrio from April 2025, it leans into a nostalgic visual style. The character of Strawberry has her 1970s design, with a wider face and more wool-like hair than the more modern iterations. Only the flat digital colouring of the phone wallpaper serves to distinguish the image from the character as she appeared on Muriel Farian's promotional greeting cards. Clearly, children themselves are less a prominent focus in the model of the consumer than children's media brands aim to appeal to in the present day. Historian Raphael Samuel denotes the potential negative consequences of looking backwards for inspiration in a chapter of his book Theatres of Memory, titled Heritage Baiting. He argues, quote, "Heritage has had a very bad press, and it is widely accused of wanting to commodity the past and turn it into a tourist kitsch. Aesthetes of both right and left, though perhaps especially the latter, have found it offensive, accusing it of packaging the past and presenting a Disney-fied version of history in place of the real thing. Purists have objected to the schemes promoted in its name, arguing it blurs the line between entertainment and education, and warning that, as with the church restorations of the 19th century, it will replace real-life survivals with a simulacra of an original that never was," unquote. He further quotes David Carradine's The Past in the Present to say that, quote, "Heritage is the mark of a sick society, one which, despairing of the future, had become besotted or obsessed with an idealized version of the past," unquote. The core idea being expressed in his criticism of a focus on heritage or nostalgia within a society can be levied against Strawberry Shortcake on account of the changes the brand has undergone in recent years. The market has been flooded with newly created images which emulate the style of the original character, while genuine images from that era become harder and harder to locate due to being crowded out. Similarly, this nostalgia focus has resulted in a lack of unique identity for the brand in the current day, replaced by endless regurgitation of what has come before. In summary, this essay has discussed the trend towards advertisement throughout the latter part of the 20th century as a primary focus within children's media, as well as the shift in direction of children's properties within the last decade towards a focus on nostalgia over novelty. The sentiment of everything having been done within both the world of children's book illustration and now too children's media more broadly can be seen as either a contributing factor or consequence of the Ouroboros nature of nostalgia-fueled output.